Sure.
All right, so we got a good number of people on here, so let's kick it off, man. We are joined here by Nik Lentz, professional UFC fighter and a trader in our Wall Street Jesus Saying Lucci community. Nik, say hello to everybody.
Hey guys, honored to be here. You know, we were
Also,
just talking about when I first came in the room, and like I was scared to type in the chat room, and now I'm getting interviewed. So I was like, who the hell is this idiot?
No, not at all, man. Of course, we're joined as well by Lucci. He's here, and we're this is going to be just an open conversation, man. I mean, we're gonna just ask you questions about a lot of it. For me, is what I'm interested in is performance psychology, right? I mean, you're performing at an elite level in UFC. There's always a lot of parallels, a lot of correlations drawn between fighting and trading, and there's a lot of metaphors that get thrown around, so we're going to kind of kick the tires with some of those things.
Okay.
So, but let's start out. Let's give people just a quick background, if you will, on your experience as a fighter and kind of your journey with that real quick, and then also you as a trader, like, you know, how you approach the markets right now.
Well, I started in athletics and wrestling. I sort of ran away from home when I was 13 years old, and I sort of showed up on my dad's doorstep and asked and said, "Hey, I don't want to go back to where I was. Will you sort of keep me?" And he agreed, thank God. But one of the things was I was sort of a ghetto, out of shape, uneducated kid. I never went to school when I was younger because I was dealing with alcohol problems in my family. I took care of my sister and my brother instead of going to school. And so I did a lot of things like that early in my life. So I was very behind. I had no discipline. I had nothing. So my dad wanted to get me into sports. So he got me into wrestling. And so I moved from Texas to Minnesota. There's no wrestling in Texas really. So that when I moved to Minnesota, wrestling is a big deal up there. So that's like one of the better states in the country for wrestling. And so I had no idea what I was doing. Those kids start wrestling when they're like 3 years old. They're nuts about it, you know? So I walked into the room and, you know, I'd never done anything athletic in my life. And I just got my ass kicked, and I went home and I was like, "Dad, I don't think I can do this." And he's like, "You just got to go back. You got to go back." And then the next year I started winning all my matches. I became the team captain. Then I became a state champion. And then I got a scholarship to wrestle for the University of Minnesota. I went to the University of Minnesota, and college and me just didn't mix. I didn't understand the purpose of it. I didn't like it. I found it to be repetitive, useless, really much. Now, I'm not saying if you're going to school that it's useless, but I found it personally useless.
Right.
And so I had a crisis, and I really didn't like. I liked to wrestle, but I didn't like how the wrestling team functioned. I didn't like how they trained. I didn't like anything about it. So I wasn't going to go to school. I didn't like how the wrestling was working out. And my plan was to wrestle in college, I was actually going to be a doctor, become a doctor and like a chiropractor / doctor, and then wrestle for the Olympics. And all that sort of went away in like the same month. So it's like, well, I'm not going to continue going to school. I'm not going to stay on the wrestling team. So now what the hell do I do? So I moved back in with my dad, and I decided before all this to try an MMA fight. And so it was already scheduled. So I was like, well, screw it. I'll just go do it. I walked out in the MMA fight. I remember the guy punched me once, and I punched him, and he just dropped dead. And I was like, oh, well, that was easy. You know, like I suppose I could do this again. And then I did it again, and I had the same result. I did it again. I had the same result. And times later, my wrestling translated to fighting very well. And I could actually get paid as well. So it was something that like I never planned on doing, but I just sort of fell into it. And as I kept doing it, I started taking it more serious and more serious. And all of a sudden it was like, holy crap, this could be my job. And so I dedicated my life since then. That was about 15 years ago.
Wow.
So you started training for real. I mean, you nutrition, you know, the whole nine. That's when you really started to kick it in, all that stuff for.
Yeah. I mean, I was like 21 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I really like kicked it into high gear. I started training, and then like I needed money, so I had to fight.
Right.
And back then you weren't making very much money fighting, so I had to fight a lot. And so I trained all the time. I fought probably every month.
Damn. So you got in some reps then.
Oh yeah.
Just because you had to. Shit.
Yeah. And back then, you know, fighting wasn't the same. So I have a lot of fights that aren't on the record. I have a lot of, you know, but yeah, I used to fight all the time. Every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, I used to fight all the time. And so it was time for me to get into the UFC. And then once I got in the UFC, which was about 10 years ago, that's when everything like became for real, you know, because then you're actually a professional. You know, you have a contract, you're an actual real life full-time professional fighter. So that's when it really kicked into high gear. But overall, yeah, that was the path.
Right. Okay. So then trading. I mean, in the QTR podcast, you talked about you really started taking it seriously in like 2015-ish. Is that right?
Yeah. You know, like if you guys, the whole story's on there. So if you guys want to listen to it, you can. But yeah just in general, I started studying trading earlier, like close to the financial crisis time, like that 2008, 2009. And that just was, I was just like, whoa, maybe this isn't a good thing to be learning about. Like, because I just saw everyone's lives blowing up, and I was trying to get used to it. And actually back then, I tried to study it, but I just didn't get it. Like I was reading books and stuff, and I'm not like, I'm actually dyslexic, so it's a little hard for me to like just go through and read books and learn that way. So I tried to read and I tried to force myself to understand it, but I just didn't get it right away. So then, I watched everyone else lives blowing up, and you know, and so I was like, I sort of gave myself the excuse not to do it, and so I didn't do it. But then, like in the back of my mind, it just nagged me. It's like, this is interesting. This is something I want to be good at. And then, so eventually, like a year or two later, I just dedicated an enormous amount of time to the study of the stock markets and, you know, sort of like how macro investing works. Right.
So you were like, at that point, you were fighting, you were training. And then when you weren't doing that, you were just studying markets.
Yeah, all the time. One of the things that is good and bad for me is I have to be doing something. I don't know if this runs from being a kid and like, you know, living in a bad situation or something, or like to keep myself busy. I always had to, or to not think about negative times in my life. I always had to keep busy. I always had to keep doing something. I had to occupy my mind so it wouldn't wander to bad situations. And I just carried that with me through, and I just carried that with me through my whole life. Yeah. So I have to be doing something.
I struggle with that like a motherfucker, man. Right now, I struggle with that like crazy. So if I have too much time to myself, I'll just dive deeper into whatever thoughts at the moment, and then I'll lose control. I'll lose control of everything, and then who knows where it'll stop? You know what I mean? Who knows where it'll end? You know. And usually for me, like I'm quicker now at picking it back up. But dude, that's a huge issue for me right now.
Yeah. And then what was happening is athletics is one of the few things that you can only do so much of it in a day. So you can train 3 or 4 hours a day productively. After that, it's a detriment to your body. It's a detriment to your mind. You become overtrained. And then the next day you can't push the way you're supposed to. And the next day you can't push before you're supposed to. And I was running into being a serial overtrainer, because I wanted to constantly be training. I wanted to constantly keep my mind occupied. So then I used to have habits, like I used to play video games, but then I would take it to like an obsessive level. Like I became almost like a professional video game player. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a freaking professional video game player. like I'm not that into it, you know, I was like, I need a hobby that can produce money and that can produce a life for the family that I want to build. And then that's how, like, it just kept coming back to the stock market. And so that's how I got onto the study plan. That's how I became obsessive. And the stock market is perfect because literally every hour of every day, you can keep your mind occupied with something in it if you want to.
He's a fucking machine, Charlie. Who the fuck?
I know, dude. Yeah, this is, I love this. I mean, I'm fascinated by the overlap between a lot of the qualities that make someone a really good fighter or drawn to fighting and trading. Yep. And one of the things I've noticed, I don't know nearly as much about fighting, but for traders, I mean, one of the things that is a common denominator for all the people like that we work with that are in the room is they never really felt like they fit into normal structures, right? To like the corporate structure or often it's college, exactly what you were talking about. And they're just like, they kind of feel like misfits. And in the market, they're out there saying like, I can do whatever I want. No one can tell me how to, you know, express my ideas and go after this. Do you feel like that same quality drew you to fighting or drew you to trading in the same way that it drew you to fighting?
Well, I think it drew me to fighting, but I also think it's I had no choice really, because the idea of me going to a job interview is not realistic. Like I said this in the other podcast, I can think on a very high level. I understand complex situations. I can look at like charts and I can see things that other people can't. But I cannot for the life of me talk to someone about the weather or be in a grocery store line and have like a conversation with just a normal person. Like
this is the same story as me when I was 23, like sitting at that damn job that I had, man. I couldn't have conversations with these people, man. Would you like to come to the cafeteria and eat with us? And then every time they would get down there, they talk about the same fucking shit. I was like, is this how you guys really are? Like outside of work? Is this who you really are? Fuck, so I couldn't take it. Couldn't fucking take it.
So it's not like I was purposely searching for that. It's almost like I had to because my first impression is not always good. My ability to like sell people something is probably non-existent. You know, like I like the idea of me going up to someone and like being like, hey, you should buy my product. Like if I made a product, it would be good. It would be the best product ever. But me selling it, I mean, it's not going to happen.
Right. Got you. All right. So, and trading, but so you kind of had no choice but to fight. Did you feel like it was the same thing with trading? Because at that point, you were kind of making a choice, right?
No, trading is just something that I tried and that I really liked. You know, I really liked the like I said, I liked the idea that I could do it all the time. I like the idea that I could study constantly and it would produce something. And I like the idea that it broke up my fighting and it made me not a serial overtrainer. So I could still use my mind. I could still be sharp. And at the same time, I could sit my ass down as opposed to trying to do more work that would be a detriment to my athletic career.
Right. And then, so when you started out training, I mean, was it easy for you to begin with? Were you making money right off the bat, or what was that journey like?
Well, I mean, I started like in like index funds and stuff. That's how like I started. Like I read a bunch of books and I was brainwashed into thinking like you can't beat the market and all this other nonsense. And so I did that, and I was pretty good at it. Like I saved up 10 grand and I put 10 grand into an account. And I turned the 10 into 20 in like 6 months. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like that's 100%. Like, I mean, I'm doing pretty good. Like life is good.
Right.
But then like, it was like, what do I do now? like I want to keep doing stuff. I want to trade. I want to do something. So I started putting on a few more trades. So I started putting on a few more trades and then I was able to turn that 20 into a couple 100,000. And then when I got to that couple 100,000, I was like, oh, now I can day trade. Now I can start really like day trading all the time. And I have enough money that it will produce good results. And then I started that. And then a couple times, like I got squashed day trading. Like I threw one of them was like in EA. I threw like 100 grand into a trade. And like they lost some gaming right or something. I can't even remember at the time, but it turned into like 80 grand in like 1 second. And so I was like, oh crap. Like I had never lost money like that before.
Yeah. That was an option too, right? Those were options too?
No, this was later. I didn't trade options at this point. I was only trading the equity.
Got it.
And then I did the same thing. I did when I went into options, I did the same thing on an energy trade. I was like, this is a great trade. Like this stupid energy stock is going to make me a lot of money because it's been so beaten down for so long. And so I buy the damn energy stock and it gets cut in half. And then I'm like, holy crap, I got to sell this thing at a 50% loss. And that was horrifying to me because I knew it wasn't going to go back up. I knew I was never getting that money back. And then I was like, well, I think it's going to bounce a little. So if I buy call options, if I sell the whole thing, and I just put it all into call options, I'll be able to make some money. So I put it all in the call options, and the next day I tripled my money. So I was like, oh, okay, now
fucking hooked.
Yeah,
exactly. Game over, dude. Game over.
I was like, this is what I want to do here. And so I just started. I was still an equity investor, but I just invested in equities through call options because I had the leverage to make more money. And so I didn't understand how an option worked. I didn't understand anything. I just could map out. I could open a chart. I could map out where it was, and I could say, by this point, I think this stock will be here. And then I just buy a call option for that strike price. Right. And I did that for a long time, and that worked for a long time.
Well, yeah, the market was ripe for that. You just keep rolling them calls and you'd be good to go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then it just, the fascination kicked in, and then I wanted to learn more. And so then I started, it was EA again. I started learning how to sell options. I started learning how to, buy, when to buy, when to sell puts. I started could look at an option and see how much it would be worth without having to like pull up the computer chart and stuff, all kinds of stuff like that, And so that's really where it expanded. But then I started running out of material to study in just the options. And so my biggest hole I had is I was sort of like a closet investor for a long time. And like I never planned on making it public that I was an investor. I wanted to keep parts of my life to myself because I'm a public figure. So I wanted to not, I don't want everyone to know everything about my life. I just don't. Like, I like having personal things. Right. And I sort of was like outed as an investor by somebody online. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I was like, screw it. I'm going to start talking about investing. And the other scary part that I had is that I was like, well, if I start blabbing on about investing, my sponsors are going to be like, what are you doing, Nick? You're a professional fighter. Like, we pay you money to talk about fighting. We pay you money to advertise our things. But I made enough money in the stock market that I don't have to give a fuck about investors. Right. So then I was like, that was like a freeing experience for me. So I was like, okay, well, now if the sponsors don't like it, I can just say, well, keep your money.
Right.
Charlie, my bad to cut you off, man. Can we gear this towards like, I guess understanding finance of the UFC, how the payments work on that level, and then
dude, we can talk about whatever we want, man. Yeah, I mean, I'd be fascinated to know what. Yeah. How does that work? I mean, it's brutal from what I know. Even for potentially someone at your level, you're at the upper echelons of UFC. To make a career, right? I mean, it's kind of like trading.
Oh, like it's extremely hard. It's extremely hard to make a career. I would say 95% of fighters don't make any money.
I think that's worse than trading. That's worse than the numbers. That's worse than the odds for traders, man.
Yeah. So I'd say about 95% of people don't make enough. I mean, they make enough money to have like a good year, maybe, where they can upgrade their car or get a better apartment or something. But after that, it fades. They lose a fight. They get out of the UFC, and it's game over.
I mean, Charlie, you remember the ranking on tennis, right? I mean, if you're not ranked at least number 30, 40 in the world, you're making like $50,000 a year. You can't afford a coach. You can't fucking fly your people over to these tournaments. You can't do shit over here. Meanwhile, you're number 40 in the world.
And it's a year-round sport, you know. It's a year-round sport.
It's a year-round sport.
Same thing with fighting, right? I mean, you never have to stop training. Like,
and the other hard thing about fighting is that it's still one of the only sports that you're paid based on if you win. So if I lose a fight, I get half my paycheck. So
that's so wild.
That's a lot of money. So like and I win a lot more than I lose. So you sort of get used to, you have to be very good at managing your money, because you get, like if you make, let's say you make 50 grand a year, right? And then you go up to 100 for a while, you feel rich, but then you just become used to spending that 100,000 every year. And that's just becomes your normal life.
100%.
Right.
You miss one fight or you get injured or something, and now all of a sudden you make 50, you can go bankrupt in a second.
Yeah.
Because
how much of this wisdom are you right now passing on to your fellow fighters, to the people in the game that you have met? I mean, are they interested as well? Like, are you also helping them out? Do you feel like a lot of the space is just they don't have the financial savvy and they just kind of have a good 2 years, they fuck it up, and then the mental state is not there? Like, what are you seeing as far as financial concerns and mentally, in UFC?
Well, I mean, it varies. So as you get older, you sort of get like a little more callous to the people that come around. So you're not going to invest your attention and the ability to help somebody that's not around for a little bit, right? Because so many fighters come in and out. There's one that some guy comes in, he's the hot thing, and the next year he's gone. And this happens forever. And I've been in the UFC, like I said, for 10 years. I've seen guys make millions and then get kicked out the door. And I've seen guys like not last for a second. So if someone stays around for long enough and they're proved to, like, they sort of prove to the gym, they sort of prove to me that they're worth keeping around, then we all invest insane amounts of times into those guys. Insane amounts of time.
That's
so
cool.
I try everything I can to help that person. But when you first start in this game, you try to help so many people, and they end up not caring, or they end up throwing it away, that you really have to make people prove it to you. And once they prove it to you, then I help those people as much as I can.
It's the same way as trading, man. It's the same way as trading. You get
That's
people
why,
who come in hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I created this environment, and Nick knows. I mean, I come up in this chat room and I just slap the shit out of these new people that come in here, and I really don't care, because, and at the same time, like, to my discredit or to my disadvantage, is we're not one of those rooms that is really catered for the newer, I don't know anything about trading type of archetype. I mean, it's similar to you and I, Nick, having to get a corporate job. That's what we essentially feel like in a room like this. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just new, you just don't even want to, you're not going to get what you're looking at. This is more of an advanced room. So we get people like that all the time, and they're asking me for shit that I don't do, man. I don't hold hands there. You know what I mean? So I can't do it, man. I can't do it. If you show me you got something, and if you show me you got some skills and you've been around for a while, then I'll give you some motherfucking time. You know what I mean? Then I'll give you the time of day, that kind of thing.
And just humility and the desire to learn, and, the willingness to just kind of shut up and listen to people who can teach you something.
But I think that's important in anything, because number one, mentally, once you get accepted somewhere, if you didn't have to earn it, then it's not worth anything. Yeah. And so anytime you go somewhere new, like if you go to a gym and you don't earn the respect, and they just treat you nice from the get-go, then it didn't do anything for you. It didn't build your confidence. It didn't give you any emotional support there. So there's the way this room is run is good like that, because nobody is going to hold your hand, And one of the cool things about this room that I like is a lot of times when people get too, like, they ask too many, like, should I buy this? Should I buy this call? It's like, well, you make up your own damn mind, Like,
we're not here to tell you that.
Like, buy the call or don't, right? Like buy it or don't. Like, if you have some grand theory, like, just buy the thing, right? And if you lose, you lose. I mean, who cares,
Exactly.
But a lot of people can't, and they always want to, like, get babysit like that. But, that's just one of the things, Yeah.
So for you, I mean, I got to imagine that losing a fight is brutal psychologically.
Yeah, very hard.
I mean, how do you feel like losing and being able to come back and do that again, did that serve you in your training? Was that like the same thing that you had to overcome, of that resilience, or was it different?
It's a little different because a fight, when you train for a fight, I mean, you dedicate 3 to 4 months of your life to that fight. Everything you do revolves around that. So you study, you train, you work, you take time away from your family, you leave your house, you go across the world. So sometimes you get to a hotel, you cut the weight, you've been dieting for months and months and months. And so you get to feel 2 emotions. When you win, it's the best feeling in the world because you just put 4 straight months every day, 24 hours a day of work into that. And when you lose, it's mind-numbingly crushing because number 1, you didn't get the money. Number 2, you're a failure to your team. You're a failure to your family. Yep. You come home, you have to, and that's one of the hardest parts. Like you come home, like when I lost my fight and I first had kids, I came home and my kids were so happy to see me. And like, I just felt like such a failure, you know, cause it's like, holy crap, I let you guys down. Like what could I have done more?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And with trading, the losses, they seem a little bit smaller as long as you're not taking abnormally insane risk, right?
Sure.
The losses can kind of seem like, but they can add up too. So I still feel the same way with trading. Like if I blow up $10,000, I'm not happy about it. I'm like, man, I could have took my family on a vacation. I could have bought my wife something. I could have done a lot of things, but instead I lost it being an idiot. You know, I mean, I have a lot of stuff. Like I actually keep a note on my thing right here. It's right here. And, you know, it says your ego means less to you than your family. So don't take risks that aren't worth it. You know what I mean? Like
it's very mature. It's a very mature thing to say, man. And I mean, if you've been around the UFC for 10 years, I would venture to say you've matured quite a bit since your younger days, man. That was one of my questions. Once you said your upbringing, you said, you know, there was issues with alcohol, you dropped out of school, you know, all that kind of shit. You were basically labeled as one of those high risk at risk kids, right? Yep. How much of that mentality do you think has helped you make this sort of complete 360 turn? And the real question, what I would like to know is how much of it do you remember, and do you ever go back there? Like, do you ever feel yourself sometimes going back there as far as mentality, as far as, you know, whatever it is? So there's a few things that follow me from that. So one, I do hold enormous pride in myself for being able to get through that. And it gives me sort of like an inner strength, you know, because I know that I've been through stuff in life that most people haven't, you know. Definitely not.
Most people when they're young kids don't have to fight grown men for their, you know, for food and stuff, like, or for attention or for anything. Like most people don't have to do that. Most people don't have to live in a hellhole like that. So that gives me strength. The one of the things that always comes back to me though is that the idea that I'm not smart enough. The idea that, because my stepfather used to tell me that, he'd be like, you're fucking nobody. You're going to be you're an idiot. Yeah. And so I will find those thoughts creeping back in my head all the time.
That's why you got to be so fucking occupied here. This makes sense to me.
So that's like I said, if I don't stay busy, that stuff creeps in the back of my mind. And I don't like to even say stuff like this, but I'm a very intelligent person. But if I let that come through my mind, I start convincing myself that I'm not. And so that's one of the biggest things that I always have to stay away from. And like you said, Lucci, that's one of the reasons that I try to keep my mind occupied at all times.
Yeah. Tyson said the same shit. Charlie, Tyson said the same shit about, you know, his fear and his self-esteem, whatever. Right. He said he was trying to get one step above or in front of his self-esteem issues his whole fucking career. So even when he was walking into the ring, he still thought he was a fucking worthless piece of shit, bro. Yeah. You know?
Well, there's like so much.
And then he would go out there and fucking demolish the motherfucker in one fucking, that shit's crazy, man. Imagine thinking like that, though. Imagine thinking like that, bro. And imagine what you could do. Imagine what you could do off running away, not really running away, but imagine what you could do off of that power that you generate.
Right.
Fucking dealing with that shit.
Yeah. Was that like, you felt like you had a chip on your shoulder? You had something to prove? It was as simple as like, you know, people have been doubting me my whole life, and I'm going out here every day to prove myself or prove to them.
Not really prove to them, just to prove to me.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, you know. I mean, because what other people say and stuff. I mean, you can block that stuff out, but you can't get away from yourself. You know, you can't. No matter what you do, like you're always stuck with yourself.
Right.
So I always want to, and like I said, that idea, like I dropped out of college, I wasn't the best student. Like that idea chases me all the time. That I don't have. Like, what are you doing? You're a professional athlete, for God's sakes. You get hit in the head for a living. Like, what the hell are you doing trying to solve one of the most complicated games there is? Yeah. By trading this shit. Like what? Like what kind of? Like, you really think you belong doing this? And so like what's wrong with you? And so that's one of the things I have to fight. You know, I mean, when you win more than you lose, it helps. So, you know, I mean, the when the pay goes up, but it's something that like I said, I find I try to stay busy, and everyone is going to be different on what they have to do. But that's what I do. I try to stay busy. I try to stay in the game, and I try to keep my mind occupied.
How do you manage, like, and I don't say manage your ego in the way that, like, to say that you're egotistical, because you're coming across as the absolute opposite of that. But like, you have to have some degree of ego in a positive way to be able to say, I'm going to go fight, train professionals every day to keep taking that beating, and I'm going to go take on the market. How do you manage that without letting it run away and get overconfident and blow up? Like, how do you keep yourself in that equilibrium?
Yeah, see, the fight with me is always the opposite. The fight with me is always I don't think that I'm good enough, so I have to build myself up to make sure that I'm ready to go in. That's the battle. The battle for me is different than maybe for other people. The ego is never the problem.
It is different. It is different. That's the complete opposite of the way my ego, you know, affects me, man. That's dope to hear, man. That's
yeah.
wild.
So yeah, that would be how it works. So mine's the opposite. So it's just I have to continually to build up. I have to continually make sure I'm doing the right things. So I know that I'm ready. I know that I'm like worth it. I know that I can do this. I know that I'm intelligent enough to do this. And if I don't do that, if I don't constantly build myself up, then I can spiral out of control very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I personally relate to that a lot too in entrepreneurship and what we do run the business. So do you feel like is the same way for trading for you? Do you have doubts creep in for trading, or does that come more easily for you?
Yeah, it happens all the time. You know, like that will creep in, especially if I lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I come in and I think I'm on some hot streak and I think I'm doing good, and then all of a sudden everything you pick is wrong. Like I sort of just did that. Like I timed this crash very well. And so my account probably went up 125% in 2 weeks. So it was a very good couple weeks.
Right.
But then like I tried to get long at the wrong time. Then I tried to get short at the wrong time. And like I gave back like 25% of it, let's say. So I'm still up like 100%, but that just I was just so frustrated with that. It was like, what? Yeah. Like for a second I was super high on the, like I knew what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, everything I touched, whether I tried to go long, whether I tried to short, whatever the hell I was trying to do, it was wrong. You know,
it was a tough past week, man. It was a freaking tough past week and a half, man. Yo, how do you balance the frustration? Just like you said, right? You're frustrating trying to, figure out the market at that current moment. But then let's say you got a fight coming up and you got to train. Do you ever find yourself getting pulled back to the markets and then neglecting, your training or something like that? Does that ever happen? How do you manage that shit? Because you gotta have some motherfucking discipline over here, boy.
Yeah, dude. Jesus Christ.
No, it happened. The fighting thing happened one time where it slipped into my fighting career, and it was fight week, and I don't remember the exact date, but I had some. Because I'm a swing trader, I usually swing trade. So I'm usually have like lots of swings on. Regardless of if the market's going up or down, I have lots of swings on. And so it was fight week, and fucking Trump came out with like a tariff tweet or something. And I mean, my account just blew up, just fucking blew up. And I was, and like, I opened my phone and it's fight week and I'm cutting weight. I wasn't in the right state of mind. And I was just like, oh my fucking God, like this cannot be happening. And like, thank God I actually ended up winning the fight, but it really affected me that whole day.
Definitely.
And so I was like, I have to become away from this. And now 3 weeks before my fight, I end all positions.
See, so you came up with a hack for it. You came up with a hack for it, and you solved the problem. Okay.
Yeah. So 3 weeks before I start section, if I can, I try to get out of everything. If I can't, I'll slowly start getting out of everything that I can.
Yep.
And then pretty much just, you know, if it's gonna go away without me, then that's the way the world works.
Some fucking discipline over here, Charlie.
Some understanding yourself, man. I mean, that's
discipline.
So you have a heavy risk appetite, obviously, fighting, trading. You are obsessive, as you've said. A lot of people find that things that serve them in trading, and I'm sure in fighting, don't serve them in their normal walking life, right? Have you had issues with like the things that make you really good at these things affecting you in your personal life? Or because it seems like you talk about it, your family, you know, you're in your home right now. It seems like things are pretty stable, you know.
The biggest, I mean, I have a lot of stories about this, but my personal life can go to hell very quickly.
Yeah,
I can forget about the whole world in a second. You know, I can wake up, you know, one day and not have talked to someone for a month or two, you know,
but you see what you just said right there? Like you realize you still have those same demons. You know what I'm saying? You realize like you're still that guy that could, you know, that could fall into that pit that you're talking about right now, correct?
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest, this is a long story, but I'm going to shorten it up. The biggest detriment to my fighting career that ever happened to me is I used to travel back and forth from Minnesota to Florida. So I would leave Minnesota. My wife would stay in Minnesota because we had a house and stuff. And I would come down and train in Florida for 8 weeks. And when I came down here and trained, it was a miserable experience. I stayed in a hotel. I never went out. I just trained. It was awful. But there was a divide that became between me and my wife from me not being there. And then that sort of strained our relationship. And then as that relationship strained, my fighting career sort of went with it. And so I was still winning fights, but my performances were worse. Everything was worse. And so that's the kind of stuff that I can do. Like I said, I can wake up 3 months later and realize I haven't talked to somebody that's very important to me for 3 fucking months. You know what I mean? I can do that. I could easily do that. And so that's really important when I had kids that I make sure, like, my kids are home with me all the time. I take them everywhere. So that's how I built that in. So that will never happen to me. So it's a little stressful.
So you got kids in the house, you're trading and you're training for fighting.
Yeah. My kids.
So how are you managing? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? What's a Monday look like for you?
Well, I wake up at 6 and then I usually go run. And then, so I run like 5 miles or something like that, 5-10 miles. Then I come back home, I eat, my kids wake up. So I get them dressed, I feed them. And then we pack up the stuff and then we go to the gym, so then we go train at the gym. Then I come home and then, before we leave, I feed them. And then while they're eating, I come up here for the market open and then I trade the market open and then till about like 10 or 10:30. Then I throw them in the car. We go train. I go from 11 to 1. We train in fighting. Then I come home. I finish the market from 1 to 4. And then my wife gets home. We switch. I go train again. And then I come home from there, I train for 2 hours. Then I come home. Then I study what's going to happen in the markets in the morning. And then we start over.
Damn. That's wild, man. So you are, and you've never had a like, do you ever burn out? Do you ever just hit fatigue level? You're like, I'm done. I can't.
No, I never mentally burn out, but I can physically burn out. I can push myself too far.
Yeah.
Where my body cannot keep up with what I want to do.
Right.
But that's as crazy as it sounds, that's what the market gave me, is that I can still be busy, but it doesn't physically drain me. It only mentally drains me. And I feel like I feel like my mind can last forever.
Jesus Christ,
That's
Charlie,
insane,
this
dude. That's
whole conversation, you know what it is? This whole conversation has shown me that I don't think I've ever truly tested my mental capacities.
Yeah.
I really don't think I have. I don't think I have. I punk out pretty quickly, bro.
I was gonna say
I punk out pretty quickly, yo.
I've never felt softer in my life.
I fucking punk out, man. Shit.
I did a half-hour Peloton this morning, and I was like, oh, man. I'm gonna take over the world today. So what about? All right, I'm curious about. You talked for a second in the QTR interview about the feeling of going into the UFC and all of a sudden going to this next level stage of being in that level of arena. I mean, I can't even imagine what that is like with crowd, thousands of people there and all that. Is the emotion of that, was that similar at all to sizing up in your trading, to like going to the next level, or are those completely different experiences?
No, it's very similar. It's very similar to trading more money. You know, one of the things that I haven't had to deal with yet is trading super large sums of money, is that I still have a lot to learn in the options world. And I know that I could make a mistake and blow up a ton of money. So every time my account gets to a certain level, I take the money out of it. So I can't do that. So the biggest I ever got my account was up to like 500 grand. And then I just took it out and bought my house, the house I'm in right now.
Nice.
So then I was like, they're not taking this money back from me. I'm not going to wake up one day and get overconfident and do something stupid and just blow the whole shit up. Right.
Yep.
So unfortunately I've done that a few times. And so it's kind of like almost like blowing yourself up, because I have to start over with a small amount of money. And so I just did that not that long ago, about 6 months ago, I started over. And then I started over with like 10 grand. And so now, you know, I'm floating around like 200,000 from the 10. But, you know, like, so you get one, it's, you know, it's a little different because when you start over, it's really hard to spend such small amounts of money.
Yeah.
And then, you know, without blowing, like I would do that when I first started. Just recently, I just started over. I would start a position and go to start more, and the computer would beep, and it'd be like, you have no money. Like, what are you doing? How are you trying to buy something? Like, you already used it all, idiot. And I was like,
Right.
Some people are good at this. Some people are good at making money, taking it out, trading always like they were trading a certain level of account, and that's it. They don't get accustomed. They don't allow themselves to get accustomed to larger dollars and all that kind of stuff. Me, I'm a fucking animal out here.
you're
alive.
But my goal is to trade big.
Okay, your goal is that. Okay.
Yeah, that's my goal, is to trade big. The only thing that I want to do is when I'm done fighting, and this is going to be my job, this is going to take care of my family. Yeah. I don't want to have the pressure of their house on the line. I don't want to have the pressure of our cars on the line. I want to have everything paid for.
But you know why? You know why? Because you had the fucking background that you had. You grew up the way you fucking grew up, so it makes sense. He's like my father, Charlie. My father is so scared of spending a single dime because he remembers what it was like to fucking be starving and not have absolutely anything to eat for his whole damn family, and watching his father cry because he ain't got no damn money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my dad was the same way, man. My dad was like, you guys are never going to be like what I had working as a janitor when you're 12 years old to put, you know, food on your table and stuff. And he was like, you're setting money aside. I'm setting money aside. Like,
yeah.
And that's important to know. I think there's so many traders out there who just like feel like they're mimicking somebody else. They need to be at a certain size, whatever, and they just forget about everything they've learned about themselves through all their life experience. They throw that shit out the window. And you're a perfect example of just saying, like, I know I have the potential to blow this 500 grand, and I know I don't want to live with this stress. So I'm taking it out, you know, even though I have to start from 10 grand again, like that's what I got to do. Ranchero is really good at this, Lucci. He's really good at understanding himself and just being like, I don't care what anybody else is doing. What works for anybody else. I know what works for me, so I'm going to do that.
Yep, 100%.
100%. By the way, Nick, you probably can't see the chat, but people are giving insane love to you for this, what you're dropping.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I don't have the chat open, but yeah.
No, people are really, really appreciating what you're saying here. And yeah, guys, we can take a couple questions. Nick, as long as you got a couple more minutes to. Let me see. I got a couple more. Lucci, you got anything else you want to ask before we take questions from the audience?
How does the sponsorship and shit work? How long do those contracts last? What do they look like? What do you have to do, I guess, do you have to keep up appearances and shit? I remember you guys on the QTR podcast talking about, you're a more well-rounded package of a fighter, right? You can talk, you can, you get all-around fighter and all this kind of other stuff. Obviously that plays to your benefit when looking for sponsors and shit, but how does the whole sponsorship game work? What do you have to do?
Well, it's changed a lot of times because now the UFC has individual sponsors, so you can't get sponsored by certain companies in the UFC ring. You can only be sponsored by Reebok. You can only be sponsored by the companies.
And that's a UFC specific rule, right? So
and then you're paid by your tenure.
Okay.
So I'm at the top tier because I've been around a long freaking time. So I get all the top of the sponsorship dollars when it comes to that. But I have individual sponsors, like I'm sponsored by True Leave.
Okay.
And like stuff like that. And that's just stuff I put up myself. I write my own contracts. I set up my own stuff. Everything.
So you don't have this agent shit and a lawyer. Like how long?
I had agents for years.
Okay.
And then that's one of the other things. Like fighting is so expensive because you have managers. You have to pay so many people. By the time you're done, you have like 40% of your check, and you still have to pay taxes. So
break us down. Break us down. Like what that looked like. Break us down. Like let's say you got paid, I don't know, 50 grand for a fight or 20 grand for a fight. Like break us down where that money would go. Like
So when I first started, the common manager fee was 20%.
Okay.
So and you had to have a manager to get into the UFC. You couldn't get in there by yourself, so you had to. So let's say you made 100,000, 20 of it goes to them. 10% goes to your gym.
Yep.
So there's 30% of it.
Yep.
And then you have your medicals that you had to pay for if you got CAT scans and stuff like that, whatever you had to pay. So that's a couple $1,000s. Then you had to pay, they pay for one person to come out with you. So you had to pay the coaches to fly out there. You had to pay for the hotel rooms. Yep. You had to pay for all that. So I'd say by the time if you made $100,000, you would probably keep about 55 of it, 60 of it. Yeah.
And that's pre-tax.
Yeah, pre-tax, yeah.
Damn. Dude, that's such a grind.
But that's why I got rid of all that, and I taught it myself, and now I write all my own contracts. I do all my own stuff, and now I don't pay nobody except myself.
Okay. So hang on. Obviously, there was a transition from you having to do this shit, and then you just being Nik Lentz, the motherfucker who just does whatever the fuck he wants to do, and learn all this shit himself. How much of a learning curve was that for you? Clearly, you're able to teach yourself things that, because you want to keep your mind occupied, clearly. So how long was that learning curve? And then do other fighters also look to you for that same advice? I would imagine they do, right?
Yeah, they definitely do. And the learning curve, for a long time, I just said, screw it. I would like to make more money, but I don't want to deal with all this stuff. So I'll just let them deal with it. But then I started making enough money to where I was looking at the paycheck and I was saying like, fuck.
That's like me looking at my damn broker commissions. Every damn month I'm pissing away 25 grand. Like, you motherfuckers ain't doing shit for this. Let's renegotiate this. Come on.
So then I was just like, and then one time I had a good fight. I got a bonus for the fight of the night. I got a bonus so I got 2 bonuses. So I ended up winning, and I ended up getting 2 bonuses at the same time, and the UFC sent me another check. So the check was enormous for the time. It wasn't that big now, but at the time, it was by far the most money I ever made times 5. And so then I had to look, and then my manager at the time, we had agreed that he would have just the just the fight purse. But then he wanted pieces of my bonuses too. And I was like, no, that ain't fucking happening. Like, I'm not paying you the bonuses and all this stuff. I'm like, bro, that's more money than I usually get paid in general. Like, I'm not sending you a check for that. And he's like, well, then it became like a legal battle and stuff. And then after that, I was like, screw this. I'm just doing it myself.
And shit, man, this is great. That's great. Somebody's asking here, do you manage other fighters? Like, could you, in your capacity right now, manage other fighters? Could that be another business for you? You know,
is that something you ever want to do? Yeah,
it's all these things start managing fighters, doing my own gym. All this was stuff that I thought I was going to do until I found the stock market.
Wow.
And I much prefer the stock market to dealing with any of that.
Yeah, because you ain't got to deal with nobody.
So that's why it was here. And the last thing I had in my stock market thing that I needed is I needed people to talk to and smart people that knew more about trading than I did. But I found, number one, it's very hard to find traders in real life.
Oh my God. This is the current thing I'm dealing with, because traders suck generally to talk to, man. They're very lonely people. They're very difficult people to talk to. And I think conversations like this with you, it helps to open up the space, man. Most traders until now, they never talked to anybody. You never talk to other traders. You can never do that. The only place everybody had was Twitter, and Twitter was Twitter's a shit show, man.
Yeah. And so that was the biggest hole I had, is I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't have anyone to expand my mind through. And that's the whole reason I joined this group in the first place, because that was sort of a thing I needed to expand. I needed to understand. And I tried to do it other places. It didn't work. And then finally I found this room, and I felt like it was a perfect fit.
Have you been in the Rancheros room at all about the trading in the post stuff? I don't know if you've been in there yet.
No, I'm not. I just have the Wall Street Jesus thing I paid for. But I'm not in.
That's going to be to me. That's going to be your next level. That's going to be how you're going to handle your swings and be able to hedge them off and not have to aggressively look at the market all the freaking time. But it's the hedging. Definitely. It's the hedging with the options that you're going to need for some of the swings that you want to put on. That thing, I think that'll take you to the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Just throwing it out there.
I love that.
All right. I got one more, and then we'll take some more from the crew. So you come across as someone who's almost incapable of dishonesty, right? Like you're a very
truthful person.
Right. So do you ever, I would think that serves you very well in your trading. Do you ever find yourself now like running from a truth about yourself in your trading? Do you ever feel like there's something that you're like, I don't want to look at that, I don't want to deal with that? Or are you just like, everything that's going on, you feel like you're aware of it?
Well, I wouldn't say that I run from it, but sometimes I struggle because I feel like I feel like one of my strengths is I can predict macro events pretty well. And so a lot of times when I make trades, I'm very early. And so I get squashed a lot. Like I get ran over a lot early, but I know that I'm like, this is the right trade. This is the right trade. Like I got to stick with it. So that's the battle. It's like, am I right? Or am I just being an asshole thinking I'm right? Right. Like, do I have this idea or not? Right, you know what I mean? Right. So yeah, that would be something that I always struggle with, but that's where it helps. Like I try to look in the room and see what other people think. You know, I mean, I wasn't like, I felt like when I was short the market before this crash, I felt like the whole room was always bullish and they were making so much money. And I was just like, fuck, maybe I'm a retard. Like, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing? Like, maybe I got this shit all wrong. Right. But I mean, it paid off, but still, like that's why you need people to talk to. That's why you actually need smart people that you can actually get their opinion from it, whether you stick with it or not. Right. At the end of the day, usually I just stick with what I want to. And if I lose the money, well, fuck it.
Right. But you're kind of using them as a sounding board, like bumpers to kind of keep yourself,
Yeah. Like maybe I have no problem if I see what someone else says, I will research it. Like if they say, I think this is going to happen, I'll spend the next hour or two looking to try to prove myself wrong. I don't want to lose the money. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I find things that support my case, I'm sticking to it.
Word. All right. Well, let's get a couple from people in here. So, what happens when they change a fighter right before the fight? How does that affect you emotionally?
Well, I like it because I feel like I'm smarter than most fighters, and I feel like I can adapt. I feel like my style is adaptable, and I feel like I'm a very complex fighter to fight. So I feel like the less time they have to prepare for me, the better, because they're not going to be able to handle the complexity I bring in the ring. And I feel like I can dissect them quicker, so I'm not too worried about it.
He's Bill Belichick. He's Bill Belichick.
Says Boston over there. How about let's see. How did you decide like what style of trading, what area of the market you wanted to be involved in? Yeah. How did you come about your style?
I just winged it. I just winged it from the start.
That's how you got to do. Yeah, I remember from the QTR, you started there. You did the natural curve that most people do. You do the buy and hold. You do the, you try to go to some crazy penny stock thing or whatever, and then you keep going. You keep going. You keep going.
Yeah. I just wing it, and I just constantly, and that's how I found the options flow, and that's how I do everything.
This man learns by defeat, Charlie. Come on, man.
As do we all.
Come on.
All right. What is the number one trait that makes a great fighter, and does that roll over to you as a trader?
Wait, what?
What's the number one trait of a great fighter, and does that like translate into trading? Do you think?
Well, I mean, the number one trait of a fighter is like, this is hard to explain, but it's the ability to be insanely confident in yourself while not letting it get totally out of control. So the ability to know that you're going to win the fight, the ability to know that you're the best without letting like shit go awry. You know what I mean? And so when you know you're the best, a lot of things change in your life. So that's why you see a lot of athletes self-sabotage, because that ability of thinking you're number one erodes your like everything about you. So that's why you see like a lot of drug use. That's why you see them partying all the time. That's why you see them going crazy and buying Lamborghinis and crashing them and stuff. It's because you have to have this inner being that you're the baddest person on the planet, that everything you do is the best. And at the same time, you have to keep your personal life in control. So it's sort of like you got this like crazy ball of like psychopathic emotion, and you have to not squash it because you got to go fight people. But at the same time, you can't let it get totally crazy. So you kind of got to just keep it in the in a range to where like you're just a little bit off. Like you're cocky, you're ready to fight. Everything about you is number one, but like you're not just a total degenerate.
Right. Damn. All right. Okay, so then I got to go on that. So then you're going in there and you're like, I'm number one. You have that insane confidence, and then you lose.
Yep.
How much time do you spend? Like, how do you bounce back from that? How do you deal with that dissonance of like, I was number one and I lost? How do you get back to still thinking you're number one?
Well, I mean, it depends how you lost. You know, there's all kinds of things that are involved in it. But to tell you the truth, I mean, you'll never see more crushed individuals than a professional athlete that's lost. It's like usually if you see someone get they lose the fight, they're devastated. I mean, you see people just completely break emotionally.
And sometimes they don't come back from that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the emotion is unreal. I mean, the one of the fights I lost, I got a really bad cut under my lip. And so I had to go in the back because my lip was falling off. And so they're stitching it up. And I've never felt something so painful. Like they have to inject the thing into my lips hanging over here, and they're trying to piece it back together. And I just lost the damn fight. And so I'm like,
so on top of that, right.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, like this is fucking awful. Like I let myself down, I let them down. I'm fucking crying because they're posting this shit in my face. Like so it can get out of control very fast. And so the most important thing in athletics is you have to have a memory that just deletes the past.
Yeah.
So whether you win, whether you lose, it doesn't matter. That's gone. You can't go back there. That shit's the past. It's not real anymore. The past is not real in a sense. So you have to let that shit go. And so you can't get too confident. You can't get too sad. So that's how I've done it. And as I've been a professional for many years, I just let it go. You know, it's almost like I forget.
It's experience now at this point.
Do you have like a ritual? Like, let's say you lose a fight. Are you like, all right, I'm going to go do my thing where I disappear for a weekend and like eat Cocoa Puffs in my pajamas and then I'm going to go back to work? Or like, you're just like, fuck, I'm going back.
I mean, truthfully, it's always different, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's always different. Like, for example, I lost my last fight, but I won the first round. I pretty much won the second round and I won the third round with being blind. Yeah. So I lost the fight, but in realistic, like I was like in the third round, I was fighting one of the best fighters in the world and I saw 3 of them. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like initially I was kind of sad, but then afterwards I was like, man, that's pretty fucking badass. Like I almost beat that guy. No, so it's like, yeah, my paycheck was cut in half. Like there's a lot of bad things, but in my mind, I'm like, but come on, I still would, like, if I could have fucking seen, that guy's done. And so I know the next guy I fight, he's really fucking done because I'm coming in with 2 eyes. You know what I mean? So,
that's fucking awesome. All right, we'll take one more, then we'll let you get out of here, man. We're gonna have to bring you back on at some point, though. I know we're gonna get a ton of follow on for this. Let's see. His defense. Some of these are hard to. People are like super excited, typing all sorts of gibberish. All right, from Grant, this is a good one. Is the flow of trading the same as the flow of the fight? Like in terms of a flow state that you get into mentally?
No. The fight is. I don't think there's anything really like a fight because it's like a one-on. Like I mean, everything around you is like you're just focused on just that fight. You know what I mean? Like nothing. You don't hear the crowd. You don't hear anything. It's just you feel the pain. You inflict it. Like you hear the shots. Like it's very different. Like to be in that moment. I don't think there's really. I mean, for those 15 minutes, I don't think there's really anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, like a personal one-on-one combat. I don't think it's even like any other sport or anything. I think that, you know, I think number one-on-one sports have a unique thing like that. You know, even like you guys say you play tennis. Like if you're one-on-one, that's different than being on like a football team.
For sure.
That's different than being on a soccer team. So I don't think there's really anything much like that. So I don't think they're the same. I mean, I think the discipline of fighting, I think all that kind of stuff rings true to trading. But in the moment, I don't think it's the same. And I think actually if you fought like in the fight, you're trying not to think too much. You're just trying to react. You're just trying to do the things that need to be done as fast as possible. So, I mean, maybe that's like trading, but I don't know. I don't find them that similar.
Right. Got you, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on, as does everybody else. Great talking to you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you got a lot going on, so
anytime.
Appreciate it, man.
Later.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys soon.